Pierre Quinn is a speaker, consultant, and coach for emerging leaders and organizations they serve. He has spent the last 15 years developing leaders across industries, and he brings that experience to clients who are looking to grow courageous organizations. Pierre focuses on teaching clients to assess their strengths, navigate their organizational cultures, and form deeper connections with others, which ultimately leads to personal and professional transformation. Pierre is the author of Leading While Green: How Emerging Leaders Can Ripen into Effective Leaders, and Leading While Scared: How to Find the Courage to Keep Going. He is the CEO of the Cardell Group, LLC, and the host for the Next Step Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the digital stage, Pierre C. Quinn.
Welcome, everybody, to the Next Step Summit. I'm your host, Pierre Quinn. Thank you so much for joining us here. We got 2 hours of power-packed presentations designed to help you take the next step. Now, let's deal with the elephant in the room. We're not at a big conference hall. We're not at a fancy hotel. I am literally in my basement right now. We got the lights set up, the cameras, the television. We got ambient lights in the back. And you might even hear my children from time to time because this is the next normal for us. The place where we live and work and play is all enmeshed together. And we're all struggling, trying to figure out how to navigate it. In fact, it's been 6, 7, 8, 9 months of a pandemic, and some of us are still struggling on how to not be muted. So as your host for the Next Step Summit, I am so excited to hang out with you for about 2 hours of leadership development. Listen, we're going to laugh together. We're going to cry together, but ultimately we're going to put some tools in your hand to help you take the next step. So would love for you to check in with us wherever you're watching this. I know some of you are watching this maybe on Facebook, maybe you're on LinkedIn, but I know the great majority of you are watching this on YouTube. So would love for our YouTube audience to check in with us. Let us know where you're hanging out from. We want to see just how spread out across the country the group for the Next Step Summit is. So you got some people checking in, hanging out with us. We got an incredible roster of speakers, presenters. We're going to go through these interviews today. And I promise you, over the course of our conversations, that you will find at least one thing. I promise you, you'll find at least one thing that will help you take the next step. Now, for the past 15 years, I have been working with leaders across industries. I work with leaders to help them assess their strengths, to help them navigate organizational culture, and then to help them foster the deeper relationships that lead to personal and professional transformation. I've done it in classrooms. I've done it at boardrooms. I've stood on the stage at conferences and given keynote presentations to 3,000 and 4,000 people. I've been all of those places, and I'm so excited to hang out with you today in my basement from Maryland. We got a couple of people hanging out from Maryland, Curls of a CPA from Maryland, Terrence Jakes from Maryland. We got Chris Bartley hanging out with us here in this conversation today. And I hope you got something to write with, because it's going to be intense. We're turning on the fire hose the entire way. And in 15-minute interview segments, you're going to get so much value out of our conversation. So I'd love to know if maybe we worked together before, maybe you were one of my clients, maybe we collaborated on a project, maybe we're just friends from way back and we've done professional development and growth together. Drop that in the chat. I want to know how we got connected, or maybe this is the first time you're being introduced to me and what I do at the Cardell Group and the Next Step Summit. This is actually the second one we've done. Drop that in the chat as well. If this is an introduction, first time, drop that in the chat as we get started in our conversation today. So here's what I need you to do before we bring on our first interview. I want you to think about how life has been for you over the past 6, 7 months. And I want you to think about the roller coaster, the cycle that you've been on, because I know for a lot of us, it has been absolutely crazy. Now, Richard Schwartz in the 1980s developed this theory of the internal family system. And I want to suggest that for a lot of us, our internal family has been really doing cartwheels, because there's the manager side of you that says, I just want to hold everything together. I want to look great on the Zoom call. I want to be able to find the mute button. I want the kids to be quiet as I'm trying to work from home. I want my emails to be perfect. And I want my presentations to be flawless. And I want everything to work out. And I want to hold it together in the middle of a pandemic. The picture, your LinkedIn picture, that's what you want to show to the world. The side, that's the way you present yourself. And then something happens. Maybe you have a spelling error on an email like I do frequently. Maybe the tech doesn't work. Maybe you can't figure out how to get your kids to be quiet in an important client meeting. Maybe you miss a big deadline, and your manager that thought they could all hold it together now begins to spiral a little bit. You begin to feel uncomfortable. And now you shift into what Richard Schwartz talks about in his internal family systems theory. You switch into your scared little kid. Your scared little kid is the repository of all of the traumatic and disappointing events that you've had throughout your life. When you were little and maybe you fell and everybody laughed at you, or you were bullied, or you forgot the lines of for the school play and everybody hung their head. Or maybe you were in high school and you really liked someone and you sent them a note, and then they read the note to the entire cafeteria and you were so embarrassed. The scared little kid says that whenever you have a future traumatic, disappointing experience, it's just like that moment when you were in middle school, elementary school, or high school. So your scared little kid is activated. It's vulnerable. And you were a professional. You try to hold it together. You can't. Your scared little kid is activated. And now you move into firefighter mode. And firefighter says, we're going to do anything and everything to protect our scared little kid with mass distraction. So if you got to binge watch, if you got to eat a tub of ice cream, if you got to consume your beverage of choice for the entire weekend, if you have to work hard, start an argument, whatever you got to do to get the attention off that scared little kid, and back to where your manager can take control. I want to challenge you over the course of our 15-minute segments today. I want to challenge you to take control of your internal staff, your internal team, the team inside of your head. Take control over your manager. Take control of your scared little kid. Take control of your firefighter. And throughout our conversation today, we're going to give you the tools to do it and help you take the next step. So I want you to commit. I want you to commit to finding at least one thing throughout our conversation today, finding at least one thing to help you take the next step. If you're committed to doing that, just type one thing on LinkedIn, one thing on Facebook, one thing on YouTube. If you're committed to finding the one thing to help you take the next step, just type one thing. And as we move to our first, listen, this first interview that we have scheduled, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to have this conversation with Candace Dobie. Now, I can tell you a little bit about her, but we got a cool intro to bring her to you. And then after this intro, we're going to have this conversation about courage with Candace Dobie.
Candace Dobie is an Atlanta-based speaker, author, and advisor who works with universities and organizations to help young leaders build courage in themselves to have hard conversations, navigate through uncertainty, and lead with authenticity. Candace combines a decade of research on courage with her experiences leading marketing teams at Chipotle Mexican Grill and solo traveling to more than 20 countries. This unique combination equips her with the implementable strategies she shares with young leaders to help them understand, develop, and activate personal courage. Candace is the author of If Courage Could Talk and the owner of Pep Talker, a greeting card gift company. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage Candace Dobie.
Candace!
Hello! I love that intro. Thank you.
I mean, that's all you. So I love the intro. It's all you. Thank you so much for hanging out. I know we've had a couple of conversations before about this event, but it's finally here, and I'm so grateful that you could hang out and talk. I mean, you're the courage woman. So thanks for joining the Next Step Summit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is
okay.
Great.
So, Candace, let's dive in. Let's dive in. Talk to us a little bit about leading marketing teams at Chipotle for over a decade. What was that experience like for you?
Oh my goodness. It was a whole range of things, but it was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. Being there 11 years, being able to see a company grow, being able to help young leaders. I had a very young team. For a lot of them, it was their second, corporate job. And they were figuring out how to navigate through corporate spaces, really being themselves. That's kind of the challenge a lot of us have. But how do you bring your whole self to a corporate space without losing any of your authenticity? And so that's the part that I really enjoyed the most. And so that's kind of what led me at the end of my 11-year tenure to kind of figure out that there was something more for me and that I needed to step out into my potential a little bit more. So I talk about courage all day, every day now, helping young leaders build it up in themselves.
Now, Candace, you were leading marketing teams at Chipotle. I mean, this is a big brand, widely known. Conventional wisdom says, girl, please, you better keep that Chipotle job. You better climb the ranks. You better get, to the C-suite executive position, get internationally known. And then when it makes sense, then when everything is aligned, make the transition to the work that you're doing today. How come you couldn't do that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that we can get deep. I don't know how you want to get deep, but
let's go all the way in.
Let's go all the way in. All right. So that's an illusion. And I had to realize that. I mean, a lot of us place importance and emphasis on power and influence, all the things that society has to offer us. I call it societal bling. Okay. And so we can get blinded by that. We can want to, get all the power and influence and all that kind of stuff. But really for me, and when we are in tune with ourselves, there was something inside of me that was saying, Candace, there is more. And let me tell you, Pierre, it was good. Okay. I got to take flights, get frequent flyer miles, fly across the country. I worked from home. I had a company car. It was good. Okay. But it was not as good as what was inside of me that was trying to get out. And so that's the challenge. And that's really the call that all of us have to make is, do we kind of settle for this societal bling, which is good. And I'm not side-eyeing it.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you've got something inside of you that is more than the societal bling, then you have to make the choice. You have to make the hard decision to go for it or not.
Okay, so you make this transition, and now you're really traveling the country and the world. You're an international traveler, and much of your work is built on this courage paradigm. So help us out. Yeah. How do you define courage, and why is this perspective that you bring on courage so important?
Yes. Oh, courage is my favorite. So here's the definition that I use. Courage is a choice to face a risk or a threat for a worthy purpose. That is courage all day, every day. So what that means is it's a choice. You have to make the decision, your personal choice. You don't get credit. You don't get a gold star. You don't get 2 cookies for making a choice that somebody else forces you to make. Okay. Because that's probably being done out of fear rather than your own volition. So that's the first thing. It's a choice. Okay. The second thing is that it's a choice that you make to face a risk. Every courageous action, no matter if it's a politician making it, if it's a layperson, a professor, every single choice has to have a risk involved, some kind of personal difficulty or danger. And the last thing is you want to face that risk for a worthy purpose. So you don't want to do it for something that's silly. You want it to be very much worthy to you.
Let's dive down a little bit on this risk piece, because some people are saying, okay, Candace, there's some risks I want to take, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's like crazy. The world has been crazy. We're in a political leadership transition. It's a pandemic. There's some economic uncertainty and even disparity in our country. But I'm still concerned about my promotion or, the relationship just not working out, and we need to talk, or I maybe just need to leave altogether where I'm working, but I'm scared of the risk. How do we better put these risks into the right buckets?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because this is where a lot of people get caught up. Understandably so, because the way that our brain is wired is to keep you protected and safe and comfortable. That is how your biology is kind of designed to keep you safe. So it's, courage is unconventional. It really is. It is uncomfortable and it's kind of disruptive, which is why we don't have everybody in the world acting courageously. And so if you are focused on the negative potential outcomes or the downside of the risk, that's normal. And it's where a lot of people stay. But one of the things that you have to be able to do if you are going to act courageously is you have to look at risk from multiple angles. You are never going to really get to a place where you can take the risk unless you look at it from multiple angles. And that other angle that you need to look at it from is what is the risk of you not acting? So we know that if you act, you can get humiliated. We know that you can get fired. We know that you can get embarrassed. We know all of those things. But what is the risk of you not taking the action? And Pierre, a lot of times, almost every time, that's going to really relate to your growth, your development. It's going to relate to you expanding your comfort zone. You can't expand your comfort zone until you take risks. It's going to relate to your success, your happiness, all of those things. And we have to decide, which is greater, the possibility of getting our feelings hurt or the possibility of not growing and staying stagnant.
Now, I know you get a chance to travel and talk about courage. And now a lot of that, I presume, is via Zoom calls and even conversations like this. But if you look at your work over the past few years, when you started researching and diving deep into courage and having these conversations with college students all the way up to corporate execs, highlight for us a couple of those conversations where you walked away and you said, yeah, this is why I left Chipotle. This is why this is my calling. This is why I do this work. Give us a couple of highlights from those experiences. I'm
going to give you one that I think has really impacted a lot of people I talk to, but might impact a lot of people on the call, which is a lot of people get stuck from taking the risk because they haven't figured out their worthy purpose. And let me tell you, courage is, there's a lot that can happen out there, and you guys know that could go wrong. So without that worthy purpose to really help you persevere through the challenge, you don't have enough. And so I've had a lot of conversations with people where we had an aha moment on what the worthy purpose was, so, and a lot of times it's going to boil down to you. You are the worthy purpose. Your growth, your development, your respect, your authenticity is the worthy purpose. And so when people figure that out, that I have this choice of not wanting to get humiliated and keep everything status quo because I don't want to deal with that, or decide to choose myself and to grow and develop, when that aha moment happens, it's like, yes, this is why I talk. This is why I have conversations with young leaders across the country.
So we got some hard hitting things that we're dealing with as in our country as it relates to just pick a topic, throw a brick and pick a topic.
Yes.
And there are some people who are listening to this. They're saying, okay, Candace, I love what you're saying. I love your story. I love, how you transition, how, this is your calling.
Yeah.
But I'm in the corporate space and this is where I'm supposed to be. I have a pretty good career. I work for an okay company, but I'm feeling like we need to have some courageous talks at work. We need to talk about some of the processes, the procedures, the policies, the things that we take for granted. But I don't know, Candace, where to start with that. And I really want to activate my courage in this area as it relates to the corporate space. How would you advise them?
Yes. So when we talk about the next step, let's just say this, everybody's next step is different, but a lot of times the next step isn't necessarily action, like I'm ready to do the thing. A lot of times the next step is evaluation. It's you have to evaluate some things before you can take that step. So for a lot of people, you're going to be evaluating the risk. Here are the negative outcomes, but here's what can happen if I don't take it. For some other people, you're going to be evaluating the reason, why am I doing this? And for some other people, you're going to be evaluating your resources. What are my internal resources that can help me do this thing that I want to do? So if you're in corporate America and you want to have a conversation, a hard conversation about your company culture, about things that are happening in the world that the company is really not adapting to, you need to look. I feel like this is evaluation before you make the step, but you probably need to look at your reason. Is this something that is aligned with your values? Do I want to do this just because other people are doing it and I want to look good? Or is this something that is truly connected to my values? So evaluate your reason. And then you probably want to evaluate your resources. So these are hard conversations and they do take ability to be able to have them. So do you have the technique to have a hard conversation? Do you have, are you comfortable with being uncomfortable? And do you know how to rebound from a situation if it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to? Those are your internal resources. So there's a lot of evaluation that needs to go on before you actually get to the place where you're ready to have a conversation.
Now, some people are saying, Pierre, you promised that there will be at least one thing that we will be able to walk away with at this summit that would help us take the next step. And I think you cracked the code for us right there early in our conversation. So Candace, I want to ask you just a couple of things before we run out of time in our conversation. And it's one of them is really important. It's this: talk to the person who they're in the middle of that change. They're transitioning from their 9-to-5 to entrepreneurship, solopreneurship. Maybe they're changing companies, or maybe they've graduated and this is their first job. This is their first experience, just thinking about going to work on Monday morning and checking into that first Zoom call, or if they work in person. Hands are sweaty, knees are shaking, they get a little uneasy in the stomach. What would you say to inspire and empower a person in the middle of a transition from work to school, from company to company, or from working for someone else to working for themselves?
Yeah. So I love this question. And one of the things that I want to kind of pull out in answering this question is courage is a process. We've talked about that. And part of the process is remembering. Part of the process. See, we tend to forget whenever we do something new, whenever we make a transition, we think we're starting from ground zero. We think we don't have any skills. We think that, we're entering into this place of the unknown with nothing. And that is not true. So part of the process is remembering. If you are a college student who's about to, get into your first job, it's your first time in corporate America, but you are bringing to it a whole set of skills and perspective and a whole set of knowledge, that people inside of that company do not have. And so when you walk through those doors, you have to remember that I am here and they hired me for a reason. And you bring all of that perspective and all of that knowledge and all of that, uniqueness that is you to the table. So really, whenever we enter the unknown, we think, oh my God, I know nothing. And that's not true. You have to remember that you are bringing everything that you have learned along the way.
Candace, so great. So awesome. Listen, we do this on the Leading While Green podcast, which you're going to be a guest on real soon. We do something called shameless plug time. Shameless plug. I mean, people are listening to you. They're like, how can I get more of Candace? How can I follow up with her? Can she coach me? Can she come to my organization? Can I buy a book? Is there a t-shirt? It's whatever, a bumper sticker, whatever it is. Lay out all the links and URLs, everything on us so we can stay in touch with you and learn more about your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So here's what I want to say. You can go to my website, CandaceDoby.com, for more information on everything that I do. But I do want to plug a program that I have that is coaching. And so we've talked about a lot, and it's really hard to get into in the short amount of time that we have, but it's called the Courage Workout Plan. Okay. Because it's courage is a muscle. We got to work it out. And so you can go on my website, get more information about the Courage Workout Plan. I'm going to be starting a new cycle of that in January. So get more information now. And you can go to Pep Talker if you want to get more information on the cards and gifts that I sell. Is pep-talker.com. So yeah.
And my guest on the Next Step Summit for our first series of conversations, our first conversation, has been Candace Doby. Candace, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And I wish you all the best as we end 2020 and move into 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Listen, I need you in the comment section. If you appreciated that fire hose of a conversation with Candace Doby, hop in the comment section and just type, thank you, Candace. She might be in the green room still. Type, thank you, Candace. Just let it just kind of fly up the screen if you really appreciated what she has shared. All right, so we're getting ready for our next conversation here on the Next Step Summit. But before we jump into that next conversation, I want to take some of the comments that you have shared. Glenn says the fear of failing and going back to the beginning, honestly, to me, is greater right now. The purpose part is the gap. Chris is pointing out some of the things that Candace said. Remembering is the key. And then we had a couple of thank yous coming in the chat section as well. So you're gonna hear more from Candace. You want to stay connected. Hey, if we're not friends on LinkedIn, if we're not connections on LinkedIn, if we're not connected on Instagram, if you're not following on YouTube, is subscribed on YouTube, I think you need to, because going to bring more individuals like Candace, more conversations, more leadership development leading out of 2020 and into 2021. So you want to stay connected. And just because the summit is over at 12 p.m. Eastern doesn't mean that our time working together has to be over. All right. So got another guest for you here on the Next Step Summit. He has been a guest on the Leading While Green podcast. Dr. Joseph Michelli phenomenal. I mean, New York Times bestselling author. He is a phenomenal presenter. He's written some great books, some incredible insights. In fact, on the Leading While Green podcast, we talked about one of his previous books, The Airbnb Way. So I'm grateful that Dr. Joseph Michelli could spend a few moments of his incredibly packed and busy schedule to talk to us about his new book. Now, if you don't know what the title of the book is yet, I'm not going to tell you. We're going to intro Dr. Joseph Michelli, and then we'll be right back with that conversation.
Joseph A. Michelli is an internationally sought-after speaker, author, and organizational consultant who transfers his knowledge of exceptional business practices in ways that develop joyful and productive workplaces which focus on customer experience. His insights encourage leaders and frontline workers to grow and invest passionately in all aspects of their lives. Dr. Michelli is a Wall Street Journal and New York Times #1 bestseller. His latest book is Stronger Through Adversity. In this business guide for our times, Michelli distills best leadership practices that can be used in any company, in any industry. Organized into 4 main themes: set the foundation, build connections, move with purpose, and harness change. Stronger Through Adversity provides a deep dive into the methods, tactics, and approaches leaders have used to keep their company afloat and to position it for success long after the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage Dr. Joseph A. Michelli.
Dr. Michelli, thanks so much for hanging out.
You do this right. I'm just saying, you do this right. I'm still rocking from Candace, and here you are with all these production values. Thanks for having me.
Man, shout out to our production staff who is handling this Composition LLC. You'll hear more about them at the end of our conversation today. So I had to throw that plug in there. Dr. Michelli, man, I am excited about the new book. When you reached out, letting me know the new book was coming out, I went back to listen to part of our previous conversation on the Leading While Green podcast, where we talked about the Airbnb way. I mean, incredible insights, research that you're pouring into helping leaders be better and take the next step. So let's dive right in. So talk to us about the new book. Why did you decide that this was the book to write for this time?
You know, Mike Tyson said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And man, if about February, we all didn't take a big old mouth punch. Yeah. And some people just fell to the mat, Pierre. It was just terrible. They just went down. They didn't have the infrastructure coming in, or they were just unfortunate to be in an industry that's completely blighted. Others were just holding on to wobbly legs on the ring, man. They were trying to get through the round. And then there was this group of leaders who was positioning for the long game. They were envisioning a world post-coronavirus where they were going to thrive. And so I had the good fortune of working on task forces for all kinds of leaders and global brands. And as I was watching the best of the breed, I was asking them to tell me what was going on in their head, in their tactics, in their strategy, in their fear. And it was pretty powerful to me. And so collected 140 of them up and put them in a book and kind of just shared it out with others. So I'm excited about Stronger Through Adversity.
Okay, so we're in a world today where we value some social proof, where it's important as people are kind of breezing through and scrolling. You know, social proof is really important. Give us some of the names and the companies that you worked with on this project and
Yeah,
some of the
I
insights
still
you
have
gave
to
with that.
pinch myself to make sure this proof is legit. I'm telling you, because Brian Cornell, the CEO of Target, for example, who I've known for a long time, was very gracious with his time. Hans Vestberg, CEO of Verizon, Michelle Gass, CEO of Kohl's, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz, the president of Microsoft, president of Marriott. These are not, piker companies. And that's on the for-profit side. We had on the nonprofit side, United Way, Salvation Army, YMCA of America, all of those CEOs and presidents as well. And lots of public safety leaders from, universities, as well as police departments and fire departments. So it was quite an amazing opportunity to talk to leaders across industries.
Okay, so Dr. Miceli, help us out, because sometimes when we look at the C-suite, and I know we have a C-suite executive who's going to join us on the next half of this summit conversation. Sometimes when we look at the C-suite and, from the news clippings and the YouTube videos and the media that's put out there, sometimes we forget that they're human beings that sometimes struggle with uncertainty and fears like we do. What picture of the C-suite have you seen over the years by working with leaders at a high level?
Well, some of it I couldn't share, in a family show probably, but I think at the bottom line, we're just people, right? We're people trying to make lives better for other people and inspire some team members to make it happen. Seems that the higher up you get in an organization, the more it's about inspiration and vision. The closer down you are, it's more about throwing down and getting it done. What I can tell you is in this case, we just saw leaders far more vulnerable than they'd ever been. We saw them much more authentic in their communications. We saw them listen better, listen not just to the words, but to the feelings below the words. We saw them admit that they didn't know things, which is kind of a crazy, exciting thing for me. They were doing business from their bedrooms, not their boardrooms. And they were admitting that they made mistakes. I'll just give you one quick example of that. Jeff Daly is the CEO of Farmers Insurance. And he said to me, Joseph, my team came to me. They said, a lot of folks aren't going to be driving as much. We're going to be able to make some money on these premiums. We could give that back to the consumer. But I decided I'd stockpile it because I didn't know how long this was going to be. And I want to make sure our company was really well positioned for the long haul. It turns out USAA, another insurer, came out the next week and gave the money back to their customers. And Jeff was a fast follower behind them. But he said, I was wrong. I should have listened to my team. And he went out to his entire organization and said that. And ironically, maybe not so ironically, the engagement scores of his team members on Pulse surveys was at an all-time high. Productivity was an all-time high. People don't want to be led by perfect people. They want to be led by people who are imperfect in all the ways that they are, but who are working together to align to create a more perfect world.
Oh, Joseph, I love that perspective, because I know leaders who are watching this, maybe they're coming back to watch the replay because what you're sharing is so good. Embracing that honesty. When you were wrong, I was wrong. I messed up in this area. I took the wrong step, and now I want to take the next step. So really quickly, Joseph, take some time and walk us through the 4 movements of the book. Actually, before that, help us out with why you decided on this particular title. I know titles are important. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but when it comes to books, you judge books by their cover. So what made you decide on this particular title?
Yeah, for all of us who write a lot of words inside the cover, we want it all to be about that, but about 50% of the decision is made on the cover. Stronger is really important to me. I really believe we have the ability to get through this stronger. Every time I hear the word new normal, I almost hear people pining for the old normal, like, that we're weaker because we're not in the old normal. I want us to be stronger, and through is important to me. We got to get through this. This is not something that happened to us. We have to get on the other side of it. I can't wait for the other side to happen, but let's move through it with some grace. And adversity, it's the only fire by which we're going to be remembered as leaders, probably. Of all the things we do in good times, I suspect the adversity will be really the test of the metal for all of us. It'll fire us out. So I'm excited about the title, and I couldn't believe somebody hasn't already used it. So it's one of those lucky breaks as well.
I know there are leaders, especially emerging leaders, who wish to avoid. They're waiting for somebody to write the book Stronger Around Diversity or Adversity, or Stronger Under, not Stronger Away From Adversity. What's the impact and the value, not just to the person, but also to the organization, of leaning in the difficult moments? And
oh my gosh, the strength we develop. I mean, truly, if you don't have adversity, you have no idea what your team is capable of in terms of bench strength, right? This is the time when people are rising up without titles and they're showing you how they can respond, and they're giving you a big roadmap on where your talent is for the next generation of leaders. So for me, adversity is nothing grows in the absence of some kind of resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, plants have to break through the resistance of the crust of the earth. Our muscles have to resist weight to grow. This is a chance for us to work against that force to be able to come out with a better than normal kind of world on the other side.
Now, I know the book is not out yet. People can pre-order their copy, and I really want people to do that. But we got to tease them just a little bit. So walk us through the 4 movements of the book, and why is it so important for leaders to understand this particular framework?
Yeah, build the foundation. You got to put your oxygen mask on before anyone else if you're going to be able to sustain the marathon. So there's this whole section about leading yourself, getting off your island, throwing away your roadmap and trusting your senses. There's a whole section about building connections. This is a time when you need to reach out to colleagues. You need to reach out to UPR and get more content and develop yourself as leaders. That growth mindset is particularly important, in using your community to help you get that. There's a whole section in this book about being able to pivot. What does pivot really mean? How do we make a move with urgency in these times, and be thoughtful enough, but not overthink? So there's all of that. And I think that the last really relevant things besides embracing change is the engineering your legacy, really thinking thoughtfully about how you want to be looked at on the backside of this, so you can step into that big vision for the purposefulness, to get back to kind of Candace's comments, a purposefulness of your being, and your being a leader as well.
Why is that part so easy for us to forget when we talk about legacy and how we want to be remembered after all of this is over? Why do we not bring that to mind, or even throw it by the wayside in some of our conversations and our decision making?
Yeah, because we define ourselves as human doings, right? Like, we just need to be doing in order for us to be okay.
Yeah.
To be a human being, we have to aspire to something bigger than what we can do. And it'll guide our actions. But if we just keep doing things incrementally, we tend to leave a pretty small legacy. It happens by default, not by design. So if you want to design your impact in your life, you say, I declare I will have this be what I am known for. And it will be how I last in my world beyond the time that I'm in direct contact with someone. And leaders who do that, and I've seen it happen with Howard Schultz at Starbucks. I've seen it happen with Tony Hsieh at Zappos, and so many others who I've gotten to work with through the years. And every leader in this book was asked, what do you want to be known for when this pandemic is over? And what are you doing specifically to make it happen?
Now we're listening to this conversation, and you're dropping names. You're giving us the receipts and the social proof of your work and your reach. We have some people on here that are like, Dr. Miceli, I'm not at a Fortune 500 company. I'm not in the C-suite. We got a small organization. We have a small nonprofit. We're a small startup. We're just a small team. How can the principles in this book help someone like us that doesn't have a big budget? We're not an incredible brand. We're just getting started. Why should we take the time to read this book?
Yeah, my mom didn't graduate from high school. My dad barely did. No one in my family ever went to college. I certainly understand kind of starting from not necessarily the front of the line. I also know that one of my first jobs was working for a guy by the name of Johnny Yokoyama, who'd been interned in a Japanese-American internment camp in his youth. He had nothing when he came back from the internment camp. And I can fundamentally tell you that he had a small little fish stand, 1,400 square feet of retail space in Seattle, Washington. It became world famous Pike Place Fish. People go there to catch and throw fish. It is a destination, even though it's just a fish morgue, essentially. If he can do it, any of us can do it. It isn't about where you start. It's about what your dream is and how much you're willing to commit yourself to that dream and align yourself with people who can foster and fuel you and ignore the people who will tell you can't. And for me, that's the story of Howard Schultz, who I just referenced earlier, whose father was a diaper delivery truck guy who broke his leg. They had no health insurance. I mean, I can tell you the stories, but the most important thing is to not get too distracted by any of that and make your own story, because leading through a pandemic is leaning on the uniqueness of who you are and letting your life be your leadership story.
Dr. Miceli, you have quite an impressive resume, a long history of work with some incredible companies. People are saying, I want a piece of Dr. Joseph Miceli. I want to pre-order the book. I want to watch some of his keynotes online. I want to see, what he offers, or maybe even talking about bringing him to my company to do some work or some consulting. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? You heard with Candace, this is shameless plug time. So just kind of lay it all on us. What's the best way to get connected?
Look, I'm not about plugging anything. You can find me at josephmiceli.com. Everything is there if you're interested. If you would like to buy the book, we do have a good deal for you. It's $15 plus shipping, and it's signed if you order it now. And so we'd love to have you do that. You can do that easily. Just go to strongerthroughdversity.com, and you'll find a link there that'll allow you to purchase it. But frankly, I am so blessed in my life. I don't really need to push too much stuff. If we can be of service, my personal mission is to serve those who serve well. So if you're committed to making the world a better place and we can do anything to help you, we'd be glad to do that for fee or not for fee, just to kind of keep the world moving in the right direction. So thank you very much for your time. I'm so honored to be with you. Your heart is so right. Your energy is so right. You are a blessing. And thanks for allowing me to be a part of that.
Dr. Miceli, it's my privilege to have you hang out with us today here on the Next Step Summit. I wish you all the best leading out of 2020 into 2021, and I know we'll be talking again soon. So take care, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Pierre. Be stronger through adversity.
Incredible conversation with Dr. Joseph Miceli. If you value that in the comment section, just say thanks, Dr. Miceli. He might be in the green room, so he can see your comments. I know he's definitely going to see them on YouTube or on Facebook after this is over. So just incredible insights. I interviewed Dr. Miceli on the Leading While Green podcast, and man, incredible insights back then, incredible insights in our 15-minute conversation right here. And I know as you continue to follow up on the work that he's doing, and I know you're going to pre-order a copy of Stronger Through Adversity. I already know you're going to do that and receive even more insights we're still in the middle of a pandemic. It's still crazy. We're all facing adversity in some form or fashion in our lives, and we need to grow stronger through it. So check out Dr. Joseph Miceli's work. Okay. First half of the Next Step Summit is almost over. I told you it was going to be a wild ride. We got one more interview conversation, and then we're going to take a quick break. Right after that interview conversation, my friend Sterling McKinley is going to hang out with us for about 15 minutes and tell you a little bit about his work. And I know Sterling McKinley is a secret agent name. He might be real close to being a secret agent, but he's not a secret agent. He is a master at what he does. Now, before I kind of mess up the intro of Sterling, we're going to roll the intro, and then we're going to drop into that conversation with Sterling McKinley.
Sterling McKinley is a window pane suit-wearing international keynote speaker and digital marketing and brand strategist. Through his firm, McKinley Media, Sterling has provided digital marketing, social media, and branding strategies on projects with the Department of Defense, Bridgestone Golf, and Sprint. His newest book, Binge-Worthy Branding, examines how Amazon, Netflix, and Starbucks are using artificial intelligence to personalize their branding and build brand loyalty. His writing and presentations are the perfect blend of useful, simple, practical, and relatable advice. His goal is to help brands become more human while building stronger connections with their customers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage, Sterling McKinley.
Window pane suit wearing Sterling McKinley. Sterling, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I tuned into some of your last interviews and they've been awesome. I'm hoping that I can keep up.
Oh, no, I know you've been with me before on the Leading While Green podcast. I've been following your work. I got my copy of, matter of fact, before I say what I have my copy of, tell us, man, tell us about the book. Tell us about why you wrote it and why it's important for people to pick up, especially with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, well, the book is called Binge Worthy Branding. And think about the term binge. Think about binge watching, binge eating. So what I've done in this book, I've combined the term binge with branding. And saying your brand has to be like that. Your brand has to be so in line with your customers that they come back to you again and again. So the book is all about that, how as companies, as brands, we can be more relatable and we can be more locked in our customers. And I believe when you do that, customers will come back again and again. So the book is just reinforcing ways that all of us can improve our brands and companies.
So, man, give us an example. And I know you talk about this in your book.
Right.
Matter of fact, before I ask you to give us an example, frame for us what a brand is, because some of us are thinking, okay, I work for a brand. Do I have a personal brand?
Right.
Is my brand my social media presence? Some of us are a little bit confused. So dive deep just a little bit more and give us like 101, Professor. Break it down for us.
So quickly, there's two terms. There's brand and there's marketing. And I think people get those two confused. So a brand is what your customers think and feel about you. Are they happy when they come with your brand? They think about luxury. So the brand is really the feeling customers get when they think about your product or service. Now, marketing are the ways that you build that brand. So that can be video, that can be email, social media. So people confuse those things a lot, but really focus on the branding, because people are going to pay more when they have that branding in their head. When they think about you, that's what's going to make them come back again and again.
So give us an example of a brand that you've been watching maybe over the past few months or so that has really continued to position themselves well in the midst of just all the things that are happening in our world.
Yeah, there's so many, but I got to go to Amazon. Amazon is a leader in so many categories. And, I think Amazon is a company that we all look to because they started small. People always get, intimidated by larger companies, but it started small in somebody's, basement, a garage. And now look at it. But they're all about customer service, whether that's one-day delivery, whether that's two-day delivery, whether that's free shipping, Amazon Prime, all of those things. So Amazon does a great job because they're focused all about their customers. So customer experience is really what it's all about. So even now, think about it, Amazon has kind of changed our expectations as customers. Before it was okay getting a product in 7 to 10 days. That was fine. But now we want things now. We want things the same day. We want them the next day. And Amazon has done that. So I think Amazon has put us in a place where, especially in this pandemic, especially in this new normal as we go forward, they are aligned to do very well. So I think Amazon is a great example of that.
So let's separate it out. We have entrepreneurs and creatives, and then we have executives that maybe work for a company. Let's talk about our entrepreneurs and our creatives first, who say, man, Sterling, this is great. I'm gonna pick up a copy of Binge Worthy Branding, but I'm small shop. I got a YouTube channel, or maybe I sell t-shirts out of my garage, or I sell templates for StreamYard.
Right.
Now, what are some things that I need to be considerate of as I'm continuing to build my brand?
Yeah, some of the things is just really being focused on your customer and customer service. We make, I think, things a lot more complicated than they have to be, but like weight loss, there's tons of books and videos about losing weight, but if you break it down, it's pretty simple. You got to work out, you got to eat right, and get good sleep. It's the same thing for your company and your brand, really focusing on the customer. As much as you can, you want to mimic and be like your customer. You want to give them exactly what they want. It's really simple as that. Now, we can throw in terms all day, do SEO, social media, your website. Those are all things, but it's all about being in line with your customer. So I'll say the first step is just really doing the research, find out who your target is and give them everything they want.
Okay, so let's switch. Let's go to big companies, and they're thinking, man, Sterling, we got to make money. We have to. You're talking about customer service. You're talking about being nice to people. I know that's one of the values that are that's really important to you. But we got to make money. Do we really? Can't we just focus on another area instead of focusing on our customers?
Yeah, I think it's all about the customers. And I think about big brands now. It's so hard if you're a company now or a solo person, because there are so many excuse me, there's so many channels out here. There's social media, there's Facebook, there's radio, TV. How do you make sense of that? So we have all this data. So I really encourage big companies to use analytics, to use AI, to use programs to really filter through all this data and to get a better understanding of their customers. So even though you're a big customer, a big company, you still want to speak to all your customers as they're one person. And the only way you can do that is by using analytics, by using data to really figure out what they want. So it's a call to action. And, I liken the time we're in now to, let's go back to the pre-iPhone stage, when BlackBerry and Samsung were leading the market.
Dark days.
Yeah. And in an instant, the iPhone came out, loaded with apps, movies, iTunes, all that. And immediately all phones became obsolete. I believe we're in that time now where, companies still have time to invest in technology and invest in their customers. But, as we go forward in this pandemic and a possible recession, customers are becoming more and more aware of their dollars and when they spend their time. And they're only going to stay with companies that have a great customer experience. So it's everything going forward. You have to focus on your customers. You have to be all about them.
Okay, so a lot of us look at on social media, we look at views. We look at shares, we look at those things, but you talked about analytics and you talked about, we talked about the disparity between, a big company, a big brand that we work for, and maybe a small mom and pop shop, solo entrepreneur, nonprofit ministry or whatever. When you talk about analytics, that's one of those words we throw out. Like that's a word of 2020. Help us understand what you mean by that. And how can virtually anyone who has a social presence leverage the power of AI and analytics?
Great. So like I said earlier, everything we do now is trackable, whether it's on social media or phones, video, email, everything. So all that information, all that data is being tracked. And all analytics is simply analytics identifies trends and patterns. And when you can find trends and patterns in your customer, then you can take the information and you can build products and services around them based on their needs, similar to what Netflix does. You watch Netflix is tracking your behavior. So after they track your behavior for a month, now they can create shows around your behavior. Now they recommend shows based on what you previously watched. So once again, it's all about the data. Don't be scared of analytics. You're just identifying trends and patterns. And then those trends and patterns, you're going to apply that to your marketing and your branding.
Okay, Sterling, why was it important for you to write this book? Now, I know you traveled a lot. I know there's some common questions that people ask you, but why was writing a book an important part of you building your brand?
Yeah, I think it happened kind of naturally. We all want to keep expanding our brands, and I am a speaker. And as I was traveling across the country, I gave a speech similar to this. And I got a great response from all the crowds. I mean, packed rooms, people standing on the floors, on the side. And I said, wow, you know what I wrote has really struck a nerve. I need to turn it into a book. And even that is an example of binge-worthy branding. Think about Hollywood. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars on movies and they come out and they are terrible. And you're like, why did they make this movie?
Yeah.
But think about what Netflix does. Netflix looks at your past behavior, your past data, and creates a show around that. And then the show becomes successful. And that's what I did with my book. I went to the crowd. I found out what the people wanted. They told me what they wanted from their applause, from their reviews and their comments. Then I took the information and put it into a book.
Man, love that, Sterling. Love how you're being actionable around the content that you're teaching some of the companies that you work with, and as an international speaker when you travel and train people. So, man, it's holiday gift giving time. Why should we pick up a copy of Binge-Worthy Branding? Not just for ourselves, but pretty much for all of our friends. Anyone who's interested in building a stronger organization using the power of AI and digital leverage.
Yeah, I think this book is great if you're a beginner or even if you're somebody that's more advanced, because, it breaks down simply what is the AI, what is data, and how to relate to your customers. So this book, I say, is really a call to action. It's really a starter guide to how to get started. And this book breaks down companies like Amazon, Netflix, and Starbucks, and how they went from small companies and became big companies, and they're still growing. So the book is very relatable. It's an easy read. Unless you know exactly, what these companies are doing. And, I always say if you're a smaller company, why should the big companies have all the fun?
Yeah.
No matter what size you are now, because of technology and the internet, things are kind of level. So you can use the same technology Amazon does, the same technology that Starbucks does. You can build that into your business no matter what size, but it's really a call to action. It's saying, things are changing. I think this pandemic is shifting things, and pretty soon it's could be the haves and the have nots. So, 2021 and on, you don't want to have your company sitting on the outside saying, man, I wish in 2020 that we invested in technology, that we made customer service more a priority. You want to be on that side of the fence, so now is the time to really get serious about, engaging your customers and building a brand that's really customer centric.
Sterling, thanks for hanging out with us today here on the Next Step Summit. We got to do the shameless plugs, man. You speak, you coach, you train, you consult, you sometimes hold your kid while you're doing all of this.
Right.
What's the best way for us to get in contact with you, learn more about your work, and get connected?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website, sterlingmckinley.com. I have videos in there, podcasts, everything to learn more about me. And then the internet. Simply, if you just Google sterlingmckinley.com or Sterling McKinley, you can find me on all platforms. I'm on Amazon, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, and everything. So I'm a man of the internet. The best way to find me is just Google Sterling McKinley, and you'll see everything I made in. Even when you Google me, that's kind of what I mean, binge worthy. You see me in a picture with this suit on, in a video with this suit, because why? I'm branding. I'm constantly telling you who I am. So once again, if you want to check out me, my brand is strong. Just type in my name online and you'll find me that way.
Listen, hanging out with us on the Next Step Summit has been Sterling McKinley. He is not a secret agent, but he is the author of Binge-Worthy Branding. Sterling, thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks for having me.
Man, great conversation with Sterling McKinley. I want you guys in the comment section. He's still on screen hanging out with us. On the comment section, drop if you got some value from that conversation. If you got some value from that conversation, say thank you, Sterling, in the comments. I want you to pick up a copy of Binge-Worthy Branding. I got my copy on the shelf. You can hop over to Amazon.com and check that out. But go to sterlingmckinley.com first and check out all of his work. He does some coaching. Maybe you're looking at how to build your personal brand or your organization. I mean, he does work from small entrepreneurs all the way up to the Department of Defense. He's really good at what he does. Okay, man, first half is done. We've had incredible conversations. Candace Dobie, Joseph Michelli, Sterling McKinley, and I need a little bit of a water break. And maybe you do too. Maybe you just need a time to, the fire hose was on at full blast, right? It was on at full blast and we were throwing so much at you, and you want to take a few minutes to process your thoughts, to take a deep breath, to let somebody else know about what you've been doing for the past hour. We're going to take a 4-minute and 59-second break. And then we're going to come back and hear from my good friend, Kirk Phillips, about life as a C-suite executive and how to lead better from that perspective. So we're going to shoot to our break. I'm going to read a couple of your comments, respond as fast as I can, and then come back to you in 5 minutes so we can hang out. I'll see you in a bit. Hope you enjoyed that short break. Maybe you had to run and use the restroom. Maybe you had to get a bottle of water, grab a quick snack, send a quick email, whatever you needed to do. Hope you were able to do it as we come down to the second hour. We got 2 presentations left in the Next Step Summit Part 2. Now, we did this a couple of months ago, and it was amazing. Part 2 has been, we've taken it just a little bit higher in what we've been able to share and offer. So if you got some value, here's what I need you to do. I'm checking out the comments on the screen. Give me one of your takeaways. I know we've heard from Candace. I know we've heard from Joseph Michelli. We've heard from Sterling McKinley. In the comments, let me know what's one of your takeaways. I said, remember, I said there was going to be at least one thing in the course of our conversation, in the course of our experience today. There was going to be at least one thing that you were going to be able to walk away with and say, wow, this is something that I can build on. This is something I can operationalize. This is something I need to add to my journal. It's really made me think. It's really made me process. This is something I need to go back and talk to my team about. Let me know in the comment section what that thing is. Feel free to share it even as we're transitioning to our next speaker. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the Next Step Summit. Hey, if you're just kind of scrolling through, trying to figure out what's going on, I'm Pierre Quinn. I'm a leadership speaker, author, coach, and consultant. And the Next Step Summit is bringing together leaders like you to embrace the reality of the times, but also to recognize we have some incredible opportunities to take some next steps in our leadership. So we heard from Candace Dobie talking about leading with courage. We heard from Joseph Michelli, who helped us understand what it means to lead, be stronger through adversity, and then Sterling McKinley with creating a binge-worthy brand. So we have 2 conversations left, 2 amazing conversations left. Man, if you loved the first 3, I know you're really, really going to love the final 2. So in the second half, we're joined by Kirk Phillips, and man, been able to be connected with Kirk for a couple of years now. Does some amazing work, leads an amazing team. I mean, they do good work. They do notable work. And before I butcher an introduction to Kirk, we got one pre-packaged. So we're going to play the introduction for Kirk Phillips, and then we'll come back with the conversation about leadership and the C-suite during times like these.
Kirk Phillips is president, CEO, and a founder of Wintrust Commercial Finance, a subsidiary of Wintrust Financial Corporation, a $38 billion bank holding company publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. He has spent over 30 years in the commercial finance industry. He was part of a team that started up 2 highly successful de novo commercial finance companies, Transamerica Financial Services and AIG Commercial Equipment Finance, where he held leadership positions in sales and marketing as SVP of National Direct Organizations, as well as head of Marine Finance Group, specializing in domestic and international marine and shipping transactions. Following the global financial crisis, he was selected to manage the integration of the Commercial Asset Finance Division into the Private Placements Group of AIG Investments, where he held the position of managing director until 2015. In 2015, he joined with longtime colleagues to form Wintrust Commercial Finance, which is focused on providing loans and leases to middle market companies throughout the US and Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage, Kirk Phillips.
Kirk.
Pierre, good morning.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Crazy schedule, crazy life. I know we talked a lot over the past few months, but consider it an honor for you to hang out with us on the Next Step Summit.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Kirk, I got to be honest. You kind of spoiled me a little bit for the past 2 years. You know, I had the privilege of having you and Wintrust as a client and being up close and watching you and how you lead your team. Like from the outset, Kirk, demystify the C-suite for us. I mean, we got all these pictures, and I know we talked about it a little bit with Joseph Michelli before, but kind of give us some reality on the C-suite that might be different from what we see on Netflix or maybe our favorite movie.
Well, it's not all that mysterious. It's just a matter of perspective. You know, as we're down working and doing things in our individual jobs, sometimes we become, kind of myopic. We just kind of see our little segment, our little piece of it. But from the C-suite, you have to be able to step back a little bit and take a look at how the entire organization is doing and how all of your people are doing, and adjusting for changes in the environment. Obviously, this past year has required a lot of change and a lot of moving parts to be successful. And so from the C-suite, that's a perspective you have to have. It's just it's a much broader perspective.
Give us some perspective on really the scope, the size of your team, and really the reach on the work that you do. I know we tagged it a little bit in the intro, but I want to hear from your mouth the size of the team, the scope, maybe some of the projects and the work that you do.
Sure. Well, we're a commercial equipment finance and leasing company, and we cover the United States. We are now over $1 billion in assets under management. The team has grown in 5 years from 4 of us sitting at card tables to now I think we're up to about 49. We have offices in Texas, California, New Jersey, South Carolina, Chicago. So we kind of cover the map, but basically we provide finance and leasing services to a multitude of clients, whether it's transportation companies or technology companies, manufacturing companies, those sorts of things.
As you look back at your work for the past few years, what have been some of the highlights of leading this incredible team?
Well, I've already touched on a couple of them. I mean, going in 5 years from zero and sitting at card tables to now
Yeah.
having an organization that's over $1 billion in assets, and we probably this year going to end up doing over 700 million in new business, to also being part of one of the top 50 bank leasing companies in the United States. That's been a pretty much a highlight on its own. But really, for me, it's watching the individual growth of our team members, of seeing them grow and develop both personally and professionally, giving them an opportunity to stretch their wings a little bit. And so, had some remarkable stories there, and just really excited to see about that development.
I've been close enough to have conversations with some of your team and even with you, and watched even some of the promotions that have taken place inside of the organization. What are the factors that you look for when it's time to move a person from one level of the organization to another?
Well, it goes beyond technical competency. I mean, that's always important. Having technical competency, can they do the job? It starts looking for, are they asking for more? Are they looking for additional responsibility? Are they, for us, being a team player, a good communicator? In our business, there's a lot of different disciplines that have to come together to put a deal together to satisfy a client. And so are they able to communicate and understand how all those different segments work together to have a successful transaction? So we look for those things. And of course, it's just, do we have the opportunity? I mean, do we have the position and ability to move those people up?
Now, we both know sometimes deals don't work. Sometimes personnel doesn't work. Sometimes even the plan or strategy doesn't work. Right. What do individuals who work and operate at your level, and people even aspiring to get to the executive level, have to keep in mind, especially when they're face to face with a situation, a deal, a member of personnel, a project that might not be working in the way that you intended it for it to work?
No, great question. The easy response, and what I see a lot of, maybe that's a wrong characterization. What I do see some leaders do is they look for someone to blame. Who's responsible? That's really not the way I look at it, and that's not the way I think a good leader works at it. You've got to separate what happened from the person. Did we have a systemic issue here? What's the root cause of why this didn't occur the way we think it did? A lot of times it may not necessarily be the individual, it just may be the process. And so you have to look at that. Then you start looking at, was that person adequately trained, or are they capable of doing that? Where's the breakdown? Because again, we're all going to fail. We're all going to come up short at some period. So how do we put in place processes and safeguards to make sure that those people are successful, and so that we don't experience that again.
What's a common, you talked about the processes, talked about maybe the procedure, the framework is not the best, and which is causing a person not to be able to maybe maximize what we would hope they would do. Mm-hmm. What are some common oversights that newly promoted or new employees, new vice presidents, new executives, what are some of the common oversights or missteps that, as you travel the country, as you do a lot of speaking and coaching of leaders yourself, that you see is sort of thematic? Yeah. When a person starts, these 2 or 3 areas are going to be typically areas where they struggle the most.
Probably the number one that I see is micromanagement. You've now elevated that person, you put them in a position of responsibility. And if they're not ingrained in the culture of letting people work, the tendency is to micromanage them and to really oversee every little thing that they do. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see new, young, developing leaders create. Look, our job as a leader, and my whole philosophy about leadership is really servant leadership. We're not here to be served as leaders. We're here to serve our teams, because we are only as successful as an organization as our individual members. So I kind of look at my role as, you create the opportunity, you give them a chance to be successful, you give them the tools and the training and the things like that, and then get out of the way. Let them do their job. And are they going to make mistakes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you need to be there to coach them and guide them and correct them. And under that kind of mindset, you very rarely see those same mistakes occur again. It's a learning opportunity for them. So create that, again, I had a mentor tell me one time, I can't guarantee you success. All I can guarantee you is I'm going to do everything in my power to let you be successful, to create that opportunity for
That's
you.
Good. I was hanging out with you and the team in Dallas before this whole pandemic thing went wild on us and really limited our travel. And there was an experience in the workshop there that I thought was really powerful, as the staff was really just talking about organizational culture and observations that they made. And during that process, you didn't push back. You didn't respond. I saw you sit there and just take notes on everything that everyone was saying. Why did you decide to do that? I mean, I know the answer, but I want everyone to hear it. And why is that such a powerful demonstration of what effective leaders do?
Well, I mean, that's again, that's just the way I've been trained. If I don't understand, if I can't listen, just be quiet, not respond, and let people open up and tell me what's going on, then I'm going to limit the growth and ability of this organization. It's never going to change. It's only going to be as good or as bad as I am, right? But if I can get all these ideas, I mean, all the good ideas don't originate in the C-suite. They can originate on the front line, right?
Yeah.
And if you never stop, shut up, and listen, you'll never hear them. So for me, just having a culture of that openness, where people can communicate and share ideas and share their thoughts, that's how we're going to be better as an organization.
Give us a piece of advice. Now, you shared one before that was really good. I know you got from your work experience. You have these kind of sage nuggets and pieces of advice and perspective you collected over the years. I mean, it goes along with the COVID beard, right? You got to give us some that advice or perspective that a great mentor or coach, another great mentor or coach, or maybe even you got from a resource or a book that you read that really helped. Like you said, I'm going to hold on to this one and pass it along because I think it's really, really good.
Well, I don't know necessarily that it's a quote or anything, but it's a philosophy. And the philosophy I learned early in my career, and I learned back, frankly, early in my sales career. And we're all experiencing it right now, is in every crisis, there is opportunity. Again, it's a matter of perspective. when this pandemic hit, a lot of people started panicking about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Business are going to shut down. There's just not going to be. And I said, no. This is an opportunity. When others are fearful, be bold.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it, because there's always another side to this. And tying in with that is nothing lasts forever. And that's another thing a lot of my team hear me say all the time is this is going to pass. Every crisis will pass. It's not forever. So just, keep doing what you're doing the right things. And I'm a firm believer that if you do those things, then everything's going to work out the way it should.
Kirk, I got to ask you just one more question before I let you go. You lead a team, incredible work. The numbers, they are there on paper. It looks amazing. And you've been leading a team over the past year that's been dealing with the anxiety, maybe even family members that were sick, uncertainties, children moving across the country, trying to get back into college, all the things with the shutdown and limited transportation. How have you been able to help continue to guide your team to success as an executive while still interacting and being understanding of their humanity?
Well, number one, communication is key. Just gone on the way to try to make sure that we're communicating, over communicating. And again, it's just based on the culture that we have here. We're family, and we treat each other like family. We're very involved in each other's lives. And so, just treating people like they're part of your family, being concerned about them, giving them that extra space and grace when times are tough. And reminding them, again, it's not all about this 9 to 5, especially during COVID. You've seen studies and all of that, the burnout. People feel like they've got to work. It's like, no, you need to get away from this. Take that break. Give yourself some space to kind of recharge and renew. And then, you'll be better for your family. You'll be better for Wintrust.
Kirk, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Maybe people want to reach out to you. Maybe they have some advice about executive leadership, or maybe there might even be a deal on the table. What's the best way? Gotta be honest. What's the best way for people to reach out and get connected?
Well, certainly they can reach out to me via LinkedIn. They can reach out to me, that's got all my contact information there, certainly through our website, Wintrust/WCF, wintrust.com/WCF. Reach out to us, look us up, and, happy to be a resource to help, either with a deal or with career advice or anything like that I can do for you.
Kirk, thanks so much for hanging out. As soon as this thing is over, man, I got to see you face to face so we can continue our conversation. Thanks so much for joining me for the Next Step Summit.
You bet. Thank you, Pierre. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, so if you appreciated some of the things that Kirk shared, high level executive here, tons of experience, and the resume speaks for itself. I want to encourage you to reach out to Kirk on LinkedIn and on the website. Listen, by attending the summit, we're going to make sure, and some of you are thinking, oh man, I didn't write down all their contact information. Don't worry, if you're registered for this, we're going to make sure that you get all of the contact information for all of the speakers, for all of the presenters, to make sure that you can follow up with them in their work, ask them questions, stay connected, because we want to help you take the next step. And sometimes the next step comes from a thought that you have that leads to a conversation that really helps to move you forward. So I want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need. I'm excited about this last conversation that we're getting ready to have here on the Next Step Summit. Last conversation. But before we bring on the last interview conversation, I want to encourage you to hop in the comment section. If you had to put an adjective to describe how our experience has been today, an adjective up to this point, how's the experience been with the Next Step Summit? Drop one of those adjectives in the comment section. I know you've shared it. I know you've told people about it. I know you texted somebody and said, see, I told you to be on. It was incredible. We've had some great conversations. Here's some of the adjectives to describe our experience. Go ahead and drop that into the comment section as we are getting prepared for our final conversation of the summit. Can you believe that all the time went by just that fast? We were blazing. We were going by so so fast today. So fast today. I'm going to step over. I'm going to read a couple of these comments as we continue. Curls of a CPA says, not micromanaging can be hard, especially with a team of new people, but I'm learning to let them figure things out. Then I micromanage in my head. Chris says, one thing, all the speakers took a risk, which set them up for success during this pandemic year. The courage Candace defined, the branding insight from Sterling, management wisdom from Kirk. So yeah, thank you so much for dropping those in the comment section. And again, it's going to be very important when you reach out to people, to people after this, when we send the contact information. Some of you wrote it down from the intro videos. When you do that, be sure to let them know, hey, I was watching the Next Step Summit. I saw your presentation. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Here's what I walked away with. Connect with them on LinkedIn. That's very, very important. Sometimes the next step is a LinkedIn conversation, a LinkedIn connection. Most of us are just one connection away. Now, here's a secret. Here's a secret for the Next Step Summit. All of the individuals that you see who have been a part of this are individuals that I've connected with before. They were guests on the podcast. We worked together, as in the case of Kirk. Kirk is a client of mine. It's connections. And sometimes we need to realize that the best thing that we can do as we're looking to take the next step is to figure out what connections that we have, connections to people that we have that will help us take the next step. All right. Excited about this last conversation of the day with Dr. Heather Day. Amazing professor, amazing speaker, communication expert. She does all the social things, leads a growing community. She is just unapologetic about her faith and about her passion to help people, both young and old, to be better communicators. So we're going to wrap up with this conversation with Heather. I know you're really, really going to enjoy it. And we're going to do Heather's intro, and then we'll be back to end the conversation, to end the summit, end it well.
Dr. Heather Thompson Day is an interdenominational speaker and contributor for Religion News Service, Newsweek, and the Barna Group. She is also an associate professor of communication at Colorado Christian University. She is passionate about supporting women and runs an online community called I'm That Wife, which has nearly 200,000 followers. Heather's writing has been featured on The Today Show and the National Communication Association. She has been interviewed by BBC Radio Live and has been featured in Forbes. She believes her calling is to stand in the gaps of our churches for young people. She is the author of 7 books, including It's Not Your Turn and Confessions of a Christian Wife. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Heather Thompson Day.
We've been trying to work on this for a while.
I know. When I saw your email come through, I'm like, anything Pierre wants, I'm going to make work. Now, listen, Pierre, for you, I am in a basement.
Listen.
My entire family is upstairs. My husband's recording something for somebody in our guest room. So I got the basement. I am so sorry about the decor, but I am here for you, man.
Listen, I'm in the basement too. All right. If these curtains weren't up and these lights weren't behind us, it would be all sorts of problems. So listen, Heather, I'm so grateful that you could join us. I gotta give this. I've been holding on to this story about you for, it's about 8 years.
Should I be nervous?
But no, not nervous at all. Not nervous at all. We don't. I remember at Andrews University when I gave my final lecture. My final lecture before I was leaving seminary studies. And I remember you walked up to me and you said, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a professional speaker?" And I said, "No." And you said, "You should."
Yeah.
Because I think you're really good. And that summer, I Googled my life away trying to figure out how to be a professional speaker. And here we are. So that story I've been holding on to 8 years. So thank you so much for, that catalyst so many years ago.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention again. I'm a teacher at heart. So I love when people say, hey, something you said inspired me to keep going. And that just makes my day. So thank you for that.
So, Dr. Day, talk to us. Talk to us about the reality of what we're dealing with. I know you get into a lot of really the emotional impact of what I mean, you just kind of tell it the way it is. And I know, I mean, I got a suit on, you got a nice sweater, we got the lights, we're this amazingly produced event that's going on. What's the reality of what many of us are thinking and feeling right now as it relates to what's going on in our world?
The reality is that I meet with about 3 students a week all semester, typically for lunch. And the reality is that I would say 90% of the students that I'm meeting with right now are saying, I am so depressed and I don't know what to do. I am so anxious and I don't know what to do. I mean, right before break, I had students do a sermonette in my writing for communication class, and like 4 of their sermonettes had to deal with the struggling through anxiety, right? So the reality is that we are all struggling. And here's what I just want to say to everybody who's watching. One time so I got pregnant with my last son, and my sister got pregnant about 2 or 3 weeks after me. And then about 2 months later, my sister lost her baby. And obviously, and I was still pregnant. And it was very difficult on our relationship. My sister and I are best friends. But this experience was traumatic. And she struggled to even talk to me for several weeks, because she was I was a reminder of everything that she felt like she had lost. And I just want to say, for everybody who's watching, the reality is, as we watch everybody online and all the things that they have that we feel like maybe we have lost, it is okay for joy for somebody else's experience to coexist within ourselves with the pain that we feel in our own lives. That doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah.
It is okay that I am so happy for you, Pierre, and what you're doing and the Next Step Summit. But I'm sitting in my own darkness, right? That's okay. And so I think it's important that we give each other permission to grieve right now.
How do we fight against the pressure of, I mean, you mentioned, you're in the garage and you're comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with, there's a bookshelf that I have that I go live, and the bookshelf is actually broken. Like, there's a little piece, if you zoom in close, the metal is showing, but I'm okay with that. How do you get to the place where you don't always have to put on the face or show as you're sharing your message with the world, or maybe not even to the world? Maybe it's with the family or students or colleagues. How can we get to the place where it doesn't always have to be like we're dressed up and super rehearsed and everything perfect for us to be, who we are?
I think what we have to remind ourselves. So let me just share. They did a study, and they brought people in for an interview, and they had one person. They would have the same person ace the interview and make no mistakes, crush it, and walk out.
Yeah.
And then they had the same person do the interview again. They aced it, but then as they were walking out, they spilled their coffee on themselves. And guess who the interviewers liked more? The person who spilled the coffee. The reality is that we all know that we are imperfect.
Yeah.
Right. And so we actually connect to people more when we realize that they're in the basement too. Right. As long as I see that you're competent, but then I see that you're also not perfect, I actually connect with you more. So I am the type of person that has just really had to embrace the reality of my life. And I say to myself all the time, Heather, this is part of your story. This is part of the story that you get to tell people years from now about what it was like trying to navigate and balance all these different things and all the different plates that broke along the way. And that only makes for a better story. Everybody knows that, right? So how do we say that to ourselves? How do we remind ourselves? I have to say it out loud. Heather, this is a part of your story. And let me just say this again for everyone who's listening. What if more than God wants to give you success, what if he wants to give you a story? And
how
do we embrace every part of that journey?
there is such a fascination with numbers and with metrics. On Twitter, you get like full Heather fire hose all the way open, pull no punches. There's this, and I remember you tweeting about how a publishing company wanted you to get your social media leverage up to a certain number.
Yeah.
Now you're kind of wrestling with that. Talk to us, because a lot of us, we put the value in the viewers and the subscribers and the connections, sometimes even to the deficit of in-person interaction and conversation. How in this space where, in order to get something like a book contract or even a job where sometimes they look at your social media, how do we navigate using those tools while at the same time maintaining real and authentic relationships?
Yeah. First, can I just say, absolutely use them. We could probably do an entire conference just about social media. I teach this class. I'm super passionate about it. I am somebody that believes social media matters. My students will say all the time, they watch The Social Dilemma and now they're all conflicted and they're like, right. I don't want to be, do I need this? And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely need it. It can be the difference between the relationship that you make and the relationships that you don't make. You guys, so I have a book that's coming out June 29 called It's Not Your Turn. And it actually fits with what you were just talking about, because I wrote the book as I was going through really like the last 5 years of my life, feeling like something was coming, but not seeing at all how I was going to get there. And it just felt like at the same time that I'm trying to get a job. I was even just trying to get a job in academia about 7 years ago, I think, a full-time job, couldn't get one. I'm applying everywhere. Nobody's hiring me except for adjunct work. And at the exact same time, one of my best friends named Jewel Jones called me and she goes, Heather, you're not going to believe it. I just got hired by NASA. And I was like, wow, that is great. I choked. I choked on it coming out. I was like, I am so happy for you. And I was happy for her, but I was also incredibly sad for myself. And I just made this decision in my mind where I said, you know what, Heather, it's not your turn right now. And that's okay. But here's what, Heather, who you are when it's not your turn is more important than who you will be when it is. And so I started just living life in this space of, it is not my turn today. But I think I think when I get to where I'm going, I want to be somebody who served where I was, right? And if I have a class today, I just remember back at this time when I was going through this process, I was like, I have a class today of like 15 people. And I'm going to walk into that class and I'm going to teach that class as if it's the most important thing I'm ever going to do with my entire life. And I kind of use social media the same way. If I'm going to put out the best tweet, that I'm going to tell the best story in 140 characters, right? I'm just going to do my best. And if nobody likes it, I'm going to keep it moving. But I know that I showed up and I had integrity in my life. And I just started living in this way. And you guys, you would not believe what happened. As I started just being present and serving where I was. When I started really entering every single space as if I was anointed and called for this particular space, and this is the most important thing I'm ever going to do. Right now, when I'm on with Pierre, I come with energy because I just enter every space saying, Heather, this is the most important thing you are ever going to do. Before this camera comes on, I pray and I say, God, let me speak as if this is the biggest message I will ever give in my entire life. This is the best sermon I'm ever going to preach. And it's exhausting to live life that way. But at the end of the day, I just want integrity. More than I want social media followers, more than I want a book contract, I want to live a life of integrity. And I just think that we have to enter that way. And things started opening up for me. I just was able to connect. I heard you before I got on, I was backstage and I heard you talking about relationships and connections. You guys, I slipped in. I noticed that Michelle Williams was me. And so I slid into her DMs and I was like, hey, I have this book coming out and I'm at the endorser stage. I'm looking for endorsers. Would you be willing to read a copy of my book? And she said, yes. She's going to endorse the book. So now I get to have Destiny's Child, Michelle Williams, endorse my book, all because it's like you just show up and it doesn't matter if nobody likes it. You show up anyway because it's for you.
Such gold, such gold in the conversation today. Heather, I want you to share a little bit about being gracious to other people, being gracious to your team. I mean, we're all stressed. It's a lot going on. There's still pressure and there's still deadlines, responsibilities. Bills still need to be paid. How do we wrestle with both of those realities happening at the same time? Yes, we still need to work as a team to get this job done. Yes, there's still deadlines and quotas. And, you know, someone's grandma is sick, or they can't travel to a graduation, or they can't have Thanksgiving, or, you know, they're just depressed. They want to see outside in people. How do we navigate? We got to get the job done, and we have to be gracious with the people that we serve.
Yeah, a really great book that I read that I recommend everybody read. It's called Multipliers. It's by Liz Wiseman. And she says that multipliers, and what she means is leaders who multiply the efforts of the people around them. There's one difference between them and minimizers, the people that don't multiply the efforts of the people around them. Multipliers step into every room and think, not how I'm going to convince everybody about how smart I am. They think I'm going to convince every person in this room about how smart they are.
Yeah.
And what happens is those people then work twice as hard for a multiplier than they would for a diminisher. So I think we enter all the energy that you would usually spend trying to control how somebody else perceives you. I believe in spending that energy trying to control how that person sees themselves. And that's how you create a great team. When people on the team know how valued they are by the leader of the team, everything changes. It's not about how smart you are. It's about trying to build a team to show themselves how smart they can be.
Okay, Heather, you know, 20 minutes went by super fast in our chance to chat today. Somebody is scrolling. They've come across this part in the summit. Maybe they're watching the replay of this on YouTube, and they are rehearsing the past 6 or 7 months, and they're thinking, man, this has been bad. I've lost contracts. I've lost business. I've had to fire employees. You know, my children couldn't go back to school. I've had to shut down my shop. I'm in the midst of seeing all these people who are doing such amazing things in the world. My reality right now is that I feel stuck and ashamed and alone, but there's a little tiny piece of me that says, there's hope. What do you say to a person as they're scrolling and they come across one of your messages? What do you say?
I say, as we go through, because I know I'm doing that right now, I'm going through the last 6 months and I'm thinking of all the things that that I didn't do well at, right? I say flip it and have your brain say, what did I learn? What did I learn? What did I learn from this experience that was invaluable, that I could have only learned out of this horrible, crushing, defeating experience that I can take with me as a part of my story?
Powerful stuff from one basement to another. Heather, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Hey, we got to do the plugs. I know you got books coming out, speaking, coaching, consultant. I know you're a full-time professor, all the things. You run a huge community where you're empowering women from all walks of life. Lay it on us. Give it to us. How can we follow up with you and your work?
Yeah, so I have a blog with my best friend called I'm That Wife, which I'm super proud of. You can find us on pretty much any social media channel. Just type in I'm That Wife. My Twitter is Heather T. Day, and you can find me on Instagram at Heather Thompson Day. And my book, which I'm super excited about, it's called It's Not Your Turn. It's coming out June 29th, 2021. And I would love for you guys to follow me along in that journey as well.
Heather, got to stay connected. Got to follow up with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and hanging out today on the Next Step Summit. I know people got incredible value out of our conversation, and it will help them to take the next step. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Great conversation with Heather. Heather has also been a guest on the Leading While Green podcast, plugging all of that today. You see how relationships, just building on the relationships actually help us take the next step. All right, so we've heard from so many people today, and by so many, I mean 5. Okay, we start out with Candace Dobie talking about courage. We heard from Dr. Joseph Michelli talking about stronger through adversity. Sterling McKinley, binge-worthy branding. Kirk Phillips gave us some perspectives on leading from the C-suite, and then Dr. Heather Thompson Day. And we were talking about communication, authenticity, and relationships here on the Next Step Summit. I've had an incredible time hanging out with you. Here's what I need you to do. I don't know if Heather's still in the green room or if she left, but in the comment section, if you appreciate it, what Heather shared, can you just say thank you, Heather, in the comment section? You're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, wherever you're watching, say thank you, Heather, in the comment section. Send some love her way. We'll make sure that you get the links to her as well as everyone else, and also the links to her upcoming book and that project. All right, so we're at the end of our conversation today. And remember, in the beginning, we were talking about Richard Schwartz and his internal family systems theory, these sub-personalities, this staff, this internal team inside of our hearts or inside of our heads. You know, the manager that wants to keep it all together, the scared little kid that feels vulnerable whenever we make a mistake, and then the firefighter that wants to lead to distract us so that the manager can take over and we can show that nice, polished picture to the world. And I remember challenging you at the beginning of this summit to take control, take back the leadership of your internal team. And here's how I want you to do it. They did some research. They pulled some high performing executives together and they challenged them to write for 15 minutes a day. They challenged them to write for 15 minutes a day around everything that was making them feel uncomfortable, making them feel less than, to write about everything that was activating their scared little kid, those traumatic experiences. They asked people to write about whenever they felt uncomfortable. And after a certain period of time, the researchers discovered that the CEOs, that the executives, that the leaders that actually leaned into the writing process of writing through their feelings, of putting their perspectives down on paper, of not pulling back from those emotional ups and downs, the leaders that actually put it down on paper developed a greater resilience when more difficult times came in the organization. So I want to challenge you as we're closing this conversation today. I want to challenge you. I need you to write 3 letters over the course of this week. Take some time over the Thanksgiving holiday or whatever you're watching. Maybe you're catching the replay of this. I need you to write 3 letters this week. Write letter number 1 to your scared little kid. Letter number 1 to your scared little kid. I thought you said manager was first. Yeah, manager is first in sort of the framework or diagram, but I need you to write letter number 1 to your scared little kid. Write letter number 1 to the kid that forgot their lines in the school play, that you messed up during the marching band parade. Write letter number 1 to the little kid that was neglected or overlooked or bullied or abused. Write the letter to the scared little kid that makes up a part of you, and use the story of where you are right now to encourage them. Let them know that you will get through. Let them know that you will learn. Let them know that you will be stronger. Write a letter to the scared little kid and let them know that there is hope on the other side and that you will get through this. And then write a letter to your firefighter, you know, the part of you that keeps you distracted, that keeps you from wrestling with those emotions, the part of you that says just binge and watch videos all day, the part that says start a fight so that you don't have to talk about your feelings. Shut yourself off in your office so that you don't have to interact with your colleagues. The part that says find your drink of choice for the weekend and just drink it enough till you numb yourself. That's what the firefighter does, according to Richard Schwartz and his research. Write a letter to your firefighter and coach the firefighter part of you with better ways on wrestling with protecting the scared little kid, better ways of managing the emotion. Coach your firefighter. Let them know some alternatives so that you don't have to go down that hole anymore. And then write a letter to your manager. You know, that part of you that society says you got to have everything figured out, perfectly put together, neat and tidy, and you can't drop any of the plates that Heather was talking about. Everything is spinning. The part of the world that says it's only good if it's perfectly polished and poised, and if people don't love it and accept it, there's something wrong with you. Write a letter to your manager and let them know that everything won't be perfect, but you can give perfect effort. Every project won't be flawless, but you can push and try and give it your best and show up in that moment. And if you show up in that moment, that's the best that you could ask for yourself, and to encourage the manager part of you. Now, remember, I said manager, I said scared little kid, I said firefighter, but you're the one in control. And when the manager starts to take over, you got to give them a pep talk and give them some guidance. When the scared little kid starts to take over, you got to give them some guidance. When the firefighter starts to take over, you got to give them some guidance and take the next step. Take having a better handle on your internal team. I hope you enjoyed our series of conversations today here on the Next Step Summit. Here's what I need you to do. I hope we're connected on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn. If we're not connected, Pierre Quinn, you'll see my face there. Let's connect. There's some work that we need to do together. There is some work that we need to do together. Some work one-on-one or some work with your team. I know we're coming down to the end of the year and you're thinking, man, we need one more guided conversation, one more session, one more workshop, one more training about how to help our team wrestle with some of the very things that you talked about today. PRCQuinn.com/contact is where you want to go, or even PRCQuinn.com/speaking. Let's connect. Let's have this conversation. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's just chat about what's going on in your world. I know we turned on the fire hose. We pointed it all in your direction. And as part of the next step, there's some work that we got to do, both one-on-one, or maybe you say the work needs to be with my team as we leave 2020 and move to 2021. Man, had a pleasure hanging out with you today. If you've enjoyed our time together today here on the Next Step Summit, can you let me know in the comment section? Can you let me know if you really enjoyed all that we have put together today? And there may or may not be, the closer we get to the end of the year, one more series of conversations like this as we're transitioning from one year to the next. So if you appreciated what we shared, put that in the comment section. Let me know. Follow up with the connections of even the people who made comments. You're one conversation away from taking the next step. And I need you to have that conversation. All right. We've enjoyed it. We've thought through, we've taken time, we've reflected, we've written things in our journal. We've made the commitment to taking the next step. But making the commitment is one thing. Moving forward with the action is another thing. And it's my hope, it's my wish, it's even my prayer that you do whatever you need to do, that you do everything that you need to do to take the next step. I've been your host, Pierre Quinn, and I can't wait to connect with you next time. I'm going to hang out with in the comment section for a little while longer. I want you to enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your Thanksgiving holiday, and the rest of your year as we go to 2021. That's all we got for the Next Step Summit. And I'll see you soon.